Well, right as the United States Navy inaugurated its first ever squadron of unmanned aerial vehicles in California this week, the UN Human Rights Commission just released a report talking about the dangers that these robots present to the global community as well as to international law. The report's author, Christoph Haynes, went so far as to call for a worldwide moratorium on the testing, production, assembly, transfer, acquisition, deployment, and use of these machines. So let's examine this report in just a little bit more detail. According to the findings of this report, the U.S., the U.K., Israel, South Korea, and Japan have all developed different types of fully or semi-autonomous robotic weapons. Now, there are two major types of robotic weapons. Here's a quick look at them. The first is the major type that's very popular these days, unmanned combat aerial vehicles, better known as UCAVs, UAVs, or drones. These machines are semi-autonomous, meaning that they don't need a pilot in the seat, but that there is some type of human controller in a room somewhere monitoring this robot and making its decisions for it. Now, the second type is the one that the UN report is actually most wary about: lethal autonomous robotics, LARS for short. These machines have the capability to conduct missions and make life and death decisions without the command of a human controller. They can locate targets and then choose what to do with them all by themselves. It's a powerful and intimidating notion that the UN report says could actually lower the threshold for countries to go to war or to otherwise use lethal force. Now, obviously, there's a lot of criticism about drones, UAVs, and LARS, and numerous discussions taking place on an international level. But before we move forward, it's important to critically analyze the significance of these machines. So let's take a quick look at what these robots offer their human counterparts and why the U.S. is turning to this technology more and more frequently. Now, the first is the most obvious pro, of course. No lives are actually going to be lost of the country that owns the robots. They're not put in direct danger. Military commanders can send these robots into hard-to-reach or particularly volatile regions without risking any troops. On the other hand, these technologies actually have a limited ability to distinguish between civilians and combatants. At best, their ability to differentiate between the two is reliant on the human who actually created and coded them. On the pro side, however, these robots can process information much quicker than their human counterparts. In battle, time is of the essence, and every second counts when it comes to decision-making. So the decision-making process for these machines is actually measured in nanoseconds. But that can also be a bad thing when it comes to UCAVs. A semi-autonomous robot can actually process information much quicker than the human controlling it. So it can actually act before the controller understands what's going on. On the pro side, these machines are not motivated by self-preservation. Therefore, they will fight to the death if necessary to achieve a stated goal. But then again, they do not take future repercussions into account for the Army or for the country. On the pro side, UCAV and LARS technology will not cause purposeful suffering such as torture or particularly painful deaths. Their mission is the quickest means to an end. But when it comes to thinking outside of the box, to look at all angles of what they are doing and to consider options other than killing in order to achieve a goal, essentially thinking on your feet, that is actually out of the realm of possibilities for these robots to date. Now, something many people won't give thought to: these robots will not rape. This might sound like a silly thing to you, but let me tell you why it isn't. Rape is just as common in war, and it's not just common, it's rampant. I'm not talking about American soldiers in Iraq or Afghanistan, although several cases have actually been reported. I'm talking about places like Syria, Mali, the Congo, and Sudan, where it is also used as a weapon of war. Which brings me to my last point, that human emotions are not taken into account. These robots are not motivated by revenge or anger, panic, prejudice, or fear, unless their programmers specifically write it into their code. But that can also be a bad thing, because these robots lack emotion like empathy. Now, obviously, there are a lot of arguments for and against these killer machines. Regardless, countries around the world are forging on to be the first and to be the fastest to create these machines. We really are entering a brave new world when it comes to killer technology. The only question now is whether world leaders will be able to be brave enough themselves to use the technology responsibly and draw its limits. In Washington, Megan Lopez, RT.